With Assassin's Creed Shadows right around the corner, the internet has no idea how to think about this game. Will it be good? Will it flop? Is Ubisoft dead? I know Assassin's Creed gets a bad rap these days, and honestly, I get it. Ubisoft spent 9 games establishing a formula that found a diehard fanbase. And after 9 games in 8 years, people knew what to expect from Assassin's Creed. An action-adventure game where you play as an assassin, you fight templars, you parkour, and you learn a lot of weird lore and a little world history. Then all of a sudden, one day, the franchise changed entirely. Now it's an RPG where you play as a pirate or ninja or something, you ride horses across Great Plains, and you now only learn a little weird lore and a lot of world history. What gives? People who, like me, grew up with Assassin's Creed see the modern day titles as simple reminders of the glory that once was. The political intrigue of assassins against Templars, the exhilaration of parkouring from rooftop to rooftop in small, densely packed environments, and, of course, the story of our favorite assassin, Desmond, are all relics of a once storied franchise. Assassin's Creed today is only a shadow, no pun intended, of the franchise it once was. Or is it? In this video, I'll try to make a case for the modern day Assassin's Creeds and highlight how the franchise has been building up to the release of Shadows and how it might come together to be a better game than anyone expects. Assassin's Creed is the epitome of Ubisoft's struggles at the moment. To me, Ubisoft is something like a promising teen with ADHD. They're clearly talented, and everyone around them can't stop talking about their potential. Ubisoft is ambitious and imaginative, but at the same time, they're distracted and impatient. One thing's for certain, Ubisoft consistently has good ideas. It's just the execution part that they struggle on. Take Watch Dogs, for example. I know we're talking about Assassin's Creed, but hang with me for a second. On paper, Watch Dogs should be one of the greatest games ever created. I mean, seriously, Assassin's Creed meets Grand Theft Auto meets Deus Ex. That seems like a no-brainer. That is, until you see how much money, time, and effort it would take to implement all of the best parts from each of those games into one cohesive package. Ubisoft learned this the hard way. Watch Dogs released in a buggy state, and when it was finally fixed, it ended up being a wide as an ocean, deep as a puddle situation. What truly sucks is that with a little more time and focus, Watch Dogs could have been an instant classic, and this is highlighted by how great the game is with the Living City mod created by the Silver One. This mod thoroughly fleshes out the open world of Watch Dogs, and the end result is one of the best open world games I have ever played. But I digress. If Watch Dogs as a single game is a micro example of Ubisoft's ADHD, then Assassin's Creed is a macro example. Like a classic case of a kid with ADHD, Ubisoft was hyper-focused on Assassin's Creed when it was new and shiny. From the first Assassin's Creed all the way through Assassin's Creed 3, Ubisoft had a singular, concentrated vision. You play as Desmond Miles as he takes the roles of various assassins throughout history and helps ensure that the assassins prevail in their ongoing fight against the Templars. Then, someone at Ubisoft asked, how cool would it be if we got to play as pirates? And with that one simple question, the future of the franchise was changed forever. Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag came around, and it was, and still is, one of the best pirate games ever developed. Was it a faithful assassin story? No, and it got some flack from die-hard fans as a result, but the overwhelming reaction to this game was positive, and it became clear to Ubisoft. More than just playing a game in a time in history, players love being able to embody specific iconic figures or ideas. Just being an assassin wasn't enough for the broad appeal they were going for. No matter how hard they tried, an assassin would never beat out a pirate, Viking, Greek hero, or ninja in terms of broad marketability. Sure, the next 2 entries were still your run-of-the-mill assassin adventures, but it didn't matter. The only reason that Unity and Syndicate were such classic assassin depictions is because their development began prior to the release of Assassin's Creed 4. The truth is, the first and biggest catalyst for Assassin's Creed departure from what made the series famous is Black Flag's success. The second reason why modern Assassin's Creed games are the way that they are is The Witcher 3. Beginning with Assassin's Creed 2, Ubisoft began releasing 1, sometimes even 2, Assassin's Creed games each year. But by the time Assassin's Creed Syndicate came around in 2015, the gaming community had become deeply fatigued with Assassin's Creed as a franchise. People may be clamoring for it nowadays, but 10 years ago, most people were bored to death of Assassins vs. Templars. Ubisoft was scrambling for some way to revitalize the series. That's when their North Star first appeared in the night sky. The Witcher 3 was released. As Ubisoft was gearing up for what they certainly expected to be a lukewarm launch with Assassin's Creed Syndicate, The Witcher 3 had the world captivated, with its immersive story, main quest caliber side quests, beautiful world, and a strong main character. Ubisoft took one look at The Witcher 3 and said, if they can do it, so can I, and went to work on Assassin's Creed Origins. It's worth noting that at the time of Witcher 3's release, Assassin's Creed Origins was already halfway through development. After seeing Origin's final product and how similar it is to The Witcher 3, it seems highly unlikely that Ubisoft didn't rework the game to be more like The Witcher 3 than it was at the time of The Witcher 3's release. While we have never gotten official confirmation that this was the case, it would be an absolutely crazy coincidence considering how similar these games turned out to be. Origins was Ubisoft's first foray into Witcher 3 cloning and relying on iconic historical figures, and honestly, they hit it out of the park. Origins launched to overwhelmingly positive reviews. GamesRadar gave it a perfect score, IGN gave it a 9, and PlayStation Magazine gave it a 9. The proof was in the pudding. It might be hard to believe now, but with this first entry, it really seemed like people were foaming at the mouth for this kind of Assassin's Creed game. Origins still had some of the Assassin's Creed DNA, the story was literally about the founding of the Assassins, but story aside, this was a big departure from earlier entries into the series. Taking from the lessons learned in Black Flag, the main character in Origins, Bayek of Siwa, was a Medjay before he was an assassin. Desmond was all but a memory at this point. The Templars were replaced with some of their earliest ancestors known as the Order of Ancients. The map was no longer one dense city, but instead was a large section of an entire country. For as stark as these changes were, they all seemed to be for the better at the time. I say that as someone who obsessed over this game at launch. The story was spectacular, Bayek was an amazing character, and Egypt was absolutely gorgeous. But the best part was the side quests. The side quests were fleshed out with their own stories just like The Witcher 3, and that kept me hooked for over 50 hours. If the side quest had been fully mocap like the main story was, then they would have been some of the most memorable side quests in all of gaming. Beyond its similarities to The Witcher 3, Origins oozed with personality. The Greco-Egyptian setting was truly breathtaking. Climbing the pyramids and exploring the crypts within was all the more fun juxtaposed to parkouring across the Greek cities in northern Egypt. Riding across the desert to get to those Greek cities from the pyramids was just as memorable as the destination itself. As you spent more time in the hot sun, Bayek would begin to hallucinate and see things like locusts swarming overhead, a second sun bearing down upon him, or a meteor racing across the night sky. Assassin's Creed Origins was a great game and deservedly praised as a result. Everything about Origins would lead you to believe that their next game would be a home run, but not everything is as it's cracked up to be. For all intents and purposes, Assassin's Creed Odyssey is a better game than Origins. Critics sure thought so at least. Assassin's Creed Odyssey debuted with a higher critic score than Origins. If critics loved it so much, then audience must have loved Odyssey more than Origins too, right? Wrong. Ubisoft made one critical mistake when it came to the release of Assassin's Creed Odyssey. They released Odyssey just 1 year after Origins. They're making the same mistakes that they did before. Let me remind you that it took around 50 hours to beat Origins. To a game journalist who plays games for a living, that's not too bad. A little over 1 work week, not even 1 paycheck worth of gaming. To the average person, that was a lot of game. If you're working a full-time job and have a family, let's say you get on average 3 hours a day to play games, and that's on the super high end. If you played exclusively Assassin's Creed Origins every day, it would still take you 17 days to wrap it up. That's a pretty long game, and Assassin's Creed Odyssey doubled that runtime. For most people, or at least for me, by the time Assassin's Creed Odyssey came out, I had only just beaten Origins. Playing Odyssey directly after Origins felt too similar, too much, too soon. What sucks most for Ubisoft is that Odyssey truly is better than Origins, an opinion I would only come to after years. My initial hate for Assassin's Creed Odyssey turned me off completely from Assassin's Creed for the immediate future. I skipped both Valhalla and Mirage at launch. It wasn't until 2024 that I went back and gave Odyssey another go after having let the memory of Origins fade from my mind. This time around, Assassin's Creed Odyssey blew me away, truly. I mean, here's a game inspired by Homer's epics, the Iliad and, of course, the Odyssey. I can't emphasize just how cocky it is to make a game inspired, let alone named, after the Odyssey. If you're going to make your inspiration so front and center, then you better damn well make sure your game lives up to the scale and drama of Homer's epics. I'm shocked to say that Assassin's Creed Odyssey did just that. Again, learning from Assassin's Creed Black Flag, you're no longer playing as an assassin, but instead a Greek hero by the name of either Cassandra or Alexios. For the sake of this video, I'll stick with Cassandra because she's the canon character. Rather than following Odysseus on a journey through the Trojan War and home again, you follow Cassandra as she sets out to find her family and stumbles into becoming one of the biggest difference makers in the Peloponnesian War. The story cohesively and seamlessly takes Cassandra across all of ancient Greece as she topples generals, fights the Minotaur, and learns the meaning of family. Let me say that again. Ubisoft told a good story about a person learning the meaning of family through adventure, war, and fighting mythical beasts. That is super impressive. Like seriously, it sounds like a shit story when you just hear it. They did all of that while writing some of my favorite side characters in all of gaming, and carrying those same characters throughout the entire 100-hour runtime. They even found time to establish some very important lore to the Assassin's Creed franchise, even if that lore did take a backseat this time around. Gameplay-wise, Odyssey is very similar to Origins, but with the addition of making you a freaking demigod. I mean, come on, how cool is that shit? Ever since I read The Lightning Thief in 5th grade, I've perpetually dreamed of being a Greek demigod, and Assassin's Creed is the first and only game to truly scratch that itch. Then there's the DLC, which fits this new Assassin's Creed meets historical heroes theme perfectly by taking you on new adventures across the Underworld, Elysium, and Atlantis. By the time I finished Odyssey and all of its DLC, I had well over 100 hours in it, and even began a new game plus. When all was said and done, Assassin's Creed Odyssey ended up being on the shortlist for my favorite games of all time. I think the fact that the same team that brought us this gem is the team bringing us Assassin's Creed Shadows is a great sign for how Shadows might turn out. Then we have Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Where do I begin? I can't lie, I have 3 really big issues with Valhalla. Even years after release, I can't help but feel as if Ubisoft learned all of the wrong things from Odyssey and Origins when they made this game. My first issue is the story. It has the length of Odyssey, but the story is far more disjointed, making the journey feel like a slog. My second issue is progression. The leveling system kneecaps any feeling of progression, as all of your points go to very minute changes in your character. My third issue is the setting. While I love the idea of being a Viking, the 9th century British Isles just didn't make for much fun exploration. But even with those big issues, I do think that Assassin's Creed Valhalla did a lot right. The idea of being a Viking seems like a surefire hit. I can totally see how a developer wouldn't realize until too late that the setting is quite drab, but even still, Ubisoft tried their absolute hardest to bring a fun and immersive Viking experience to England and its surrounding areas. It's truly a blast raiding monasteries, playing the role of Jarl, and expanding and building your own village. Even if drab, the world and environment is incredibly well made and a technical marvel. The progression might suck, but they did strike gold by having unlockable skills hidden in the world, incentivizing exploration. For all that Valhalla did wrong, it did enough right to get some real nuggets of gold to bring into the future of the franchise. Ubisoft could see that they went too hard in the historical legend route with Valhalla, and they ended up overcorrecting and made Assassin's Creed Mirage. By all means, this is the most faithful Assassin's Creed game since Syndicate. It's a stealth-based game where you play as an assassin, parkour across a dense city, and fight Templars. That's what the people want, right? Wrong again! Despite giving the fans exactly what they've been asking for, Assassin's Creed Mirage went on to sell only half as many titles as expected. It became clear then that the audience didn't really know what they wanted. The audience is torn between a minority of lore loyalists who want a traditional assassin experience and a larger swath of players that just want to explore historical landmarks as a figurehead from the time. While audiences might not know what they themselves want, it should be clear to Ubisoft what the fans want from a new Assassin's Creed game. They want a map smaller than Odyssey's, but as densely packed as Origins. They want to feel more like an assassin than they did in Valhalla, but not quite as much as they did in Mirage. They want the gameplay to feel as focused as Mirage, but as open-ended as Odyssey. Enter Assassin's Creed Shadows. Now, it's worth noting that I have not played Shadows yet. My prediction is built entirely from watching previews and reading devlogs. But that being said, I think I have a good idea of what Shadows will offer. Ubisoft seems to have learned from the outstanding audience reception to Origin's length as compared to Odyssey and Valhalla, as it appears Assassin's Creed Shadows will clock in at around 40 to 60 hours. I think that's perfect. Ubisoft recognized that Valhalla had some really solid redeeming qualities despite its size, so they're carrying over and expanding the village building minigame. While it seems like progression has been reworked since Valhalla and Mirage, it also seems like Shadows will carry over the discoverable skills hidden in the game world taken from Valhalla. And when you do explore, it seems like the experience will be much more fun than in Valhalla, as the map seems to be the size of Origins, but with the beauty and variation of Odyssey. And that just sounds perfect to me. In Shadows, it looks like there will be dense cities built around parkour, but the cities will be spread out across the vast countryside. But where it looks like Shadows will really shine is the gameplay. Ubisoft has been facing a hard question when it comes to how the protagonist plays. Are they an assassin, or are they some historical figure? To answer that question, Ubisoft channeled their inner old El Paso girl and answered that question with another question.
¿Por qué no los dos?
In Assassin's Creed Shadows, there will be two protagonists, representing the best parts of both classic and modern-day Assassin's Creed. On one hand, you have Yasuke, an absolute unit of a samurai who appears to play similarly to Ivor or late-game Cassandra. Then on the other hand, you have Naue, a nimble but deadly, quiet as a mouse ninja. Rather than the in-your-face brutality of her samurai counterpart, Naue opts for more stealthy approaches, hopping from rooftop to rooftop, using tools from the shadows, and using her environment to hide her in plain sight. I just have to say that Naue appears to be the protagonist I have been waiting for years. I mean, seriously, ever since Assassin's Creed came out, I've wanted nothing more than an Assassin's Creed game centered around a ninja. I am so incredibly hyped for that. From what I can tell, it really seems like Ubisoft is taking the best parts of Origins, Odyssey, Valhalla, and Mirage and packaging them together into something brilliant. What I hope I've made clear is that, at least with Assassin's Creed, Ubisoft continuously experiments from game to game and tries to learn from their failures and successes for the future. They're unafraid to experiment with games and established franchises, and in recent years that has come back to bite them in the ass. But something tells me that won't be the case with Assassin's Creed Shadows. Looking at the history of Assassin's Creed, how the franchise has grown over time, and all of the information we have regarding Assassin's Creed Shadows, I can't help but think we are in for an absolute treat come March 20th. I could be totally wrong though. That's how these things work. They're just my thoughts laid out for you guys to hear. So tell me your thoughts. Do you think Assassin's Creed Shadows has much potential? Are you excited for the future of the franchise? Let me know in the comments down below. And as always, thank you so much for watching.